And Charles Blow, the New York Times, is back with us, and Renee Stutzman, senior reporter for the Orlando Sentinel, the paper that reported the police leak today. Natalie Jackson, one of the reasons I wanted to ask Zimmerman's lawyer about Zimmerman's resources is I wanted to know what his attachment to the community is. That goes to the issue of bail. That goes to the issue of his freedom, his inclination to flee. Does he have a mortgage? Does he own anything there? It also goes to possible civil liability, obviously, that you'd be interested in. What assets, if any, does this person have if you were to proceed in civil procedure against him? But what do you make of Zimmerman's lawyer running out of here tonight and being afraid to come on this show?
I really don't. I can't make anything of that. I think that he's been vetting stories. I think his story has changed for his client at least 3 times that we know of. What we know is that he left the car after being told not to. We know that he had a 9mm gun when he left the car. We know that he was told, he said by his own words, that Trayvon Martin was running away. Hence, Trayvon was not the aggressor.
And Charles, don't we know that if Zimmerman had simply followed the police advice, we don't need you to do this, we don't need you to chase him, that Trayvon Martin would be alive today?
Absolutely. Now, that fact, no one is arguing. I mean, if Zimmerman had stayed inside that vehicle with his gun on his waist, Trayvon Martin would be alive today.
Or if he had followed...
And there's another fact that no one's arguing.
Go ahead, Natalie.
There's another fact no one's arguing. That when Zimmerman first noticed Trayvon, he was not doing anything illegal or anything that he could not do. He was where he was supposed to be.
Right. I want to bring in Renee Stutzman from the Orlando Sentinel. Renee, you broke the story today about Trayvon being suspended from school because he had an empty bag that might have contained marijuana. Was that leaked to you by the Sanford police?
The story that we reported today was principally about what happened, the events between Trayvon and Mr. Zimmerman in the moments from when Zimmerman's phone call to the police ended. The thing that jurors are going to have to concentrate on if this comes to trial is what was in George Zimmerman's mind when he pulled the trigger. What we reported today was that Zimmerman has told police that Trayvon approached him. Let me back up half a step. That Zimmerman had stopped following Trayvon. Zimmerman had turned and was headed back to his vehicle, and that Trayvon approached him from the back and his left side. That the two exchanged words, that Trayvon struck a blow, punched George Zimmerman in the nose, and that floored Mr. Zimmerman. He's down, and according to what Zimmerman told police, Trayvon then got on top of George Zimmerman and is banging his head against the sidewalk. So the question for jurors, if it comes to that, is what was in George Zimmerman's mind when he pulled the trigger? And under Florida's Stand Your Ground law, if he had a reasonable fear of death or great bodily injury, he was justified in pulling the trigger. Witnesses have told us they heard those screams. Those screams went on for more than a minute. So there was a fight that lasted more than a minute. If you believe George Zimmerman's account to police, he was on the ground getting beat up for a minute. So that's what's important in today's Orlando Sentinel story.
Let's go to the question I asked. Did the police leak to you that information about the marijuana?
The story that we published identifies the source as law enforcement sources.
Okay. And so you're a police reporter. You've been around them a long time. This is a standard procedure, as you know. When they find themselves in trouble on a case, they start to leak stuff to you police reporters in the hope that you will advance it and it will get out there publicly and it will somehow help their case. Do you see any way in which that marijuana information about his suspension from high school helps the police case?
I don't believe it has anything to do with the police case, nor does George Zimmerman's arrest in 2005 on a charge that wound up being resisting arrest without violence. Both those things are irrelevant, but we haven't had a chance to learn too much about Trayvon's background.
It's very relevant. His arrest is very relevant. It goes to his propensity towards violence, and it goes to his propensity to disobey law enforcement.
Absolutely. Renee, I want to ask you about some lines in your story today that are presented as fact. and I don't understand why they're presented as fact. You say Zimmerman was on his way to the grocery store when he spotted Trayvon walking through his gated community. Now, others have said that he was on a community watch thing. You don't say that Zimmerman says that. You don't say that police told you that. You just report it as fact, as if you know exactly what Zimmerman was doing. You don't know that.
I think you're misreading the story.
No, I'm going to quote you again. I'm going to quote you again. Zimmerman was on his way to the grocery store when he spotted Trayvon walking through his gated community. You don't attribute that to anyone except your own knowledge. You also say, presented as fact. Trayvon then said, "Well, you do now," or something similar, and punched Zimmerman in the nose. And the punch in the nose was the first headline that you put on this story. And you don't attribute that to anyone in this sentence. That is something you are presenting, the Orlando Sentinel is presenting as fact.
Well, Mr. O'Donnell, I just disagree with you. If you look at the story...
I'm going to read you the sentence again, and you tell me if that is not a presentation of a fact. Trayvon then said, "Well, you do now," or something similar, and punched Zimmerman in the nose. Now, it doesn't cost you a lot of print to add, according to Zimmerman, according to the police. You owe us, in that article, to tell us where you got that and why you're presenting it as fact.
Yeah, Mr. O'Donnell, I think you're misrepresenting the story as it's published.
I'm going to read you this quote again.
In the second or third
I'm going
paragraph,
to read
Mr.
it again.
O'Donnell,
You're not going to accuse me of misrepresenting anything. Trayvon then said, "Well, you do now," or something similar, and punched Zimmerman in the nose. And you built your headline on that punch in the nose that you present as fact.
I disagree with you, Mr. O'Donnell. I think the story is fair and accurate, and if you want to ask another question, I'm ready to answer.
Charles, you want to get in here?
Well, I mean, one really critical part that Zimmerman's account, if you believe it, brings up here is that even in his account, he is no longer retreating when the encounter starts. Because what we had learned before was that Zimmerman said he was retreating and was attacked from behind. It is almost impossible to get punched in the nose from behind. So at this point, they are now back again face to face. We still have to figure out, Zimmerman says that they are face to face when this encounter starts. Who throws that punch? We only now know that Zimmerman says that Trayvon throws it. Trayvon cannot speak from the grave, and we may never know unless there is a witness who can say that I saw Trayvon hit George Zimmerman in the face. That is the case.
Mr. Blow.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Mr. Blow, we do have a witness that we presented. We presented phone records to the media that shows that Trayvon was talking on the telephone to a girlfriend at the time when he had first encountered Mr. Zimmerman. This girl.
I understand that point.
Excuse me?
But I understand that point, and I have listened to her statement, and what she does describe an encounter. It is still impossible to know from what she says if Trayvon hit Zimmerman or Zimmerman hits Trayvon, because she's not a visual witness, she's an ear witness, and she cannot vouch with 100% certainty that who starts what. But I'm saying that is the crucial question that must be answered.
But it is her impression.
Yes, sir, and it'll be answered.
Go ahead, Natalie. Last word.
It'll be answered by a jury if George Zimmerman is ever arrested.
Okay.
That is a question that goes to the jury. The credibility of George Zimmerman versus the credibility of the 16-year-old girl, along with the phone records that she has as proof.
Okay, that's all we're going to have time for tonight on this. Charles Blow of the New York Times, Natalie Jackson, attorney for the Martin family, and Renee Stutzman of the Orlando Sentinel. Thank you all very much for joining me tonight.